Good evening. We're going to go ahead and call to order the Anderson Township Zoning Commission meeting for Monday, October 28th. There are five items on the agenda. The first item is approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion?
I motion.
Harry, second.
I'll second.
Jonathan? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The minutes of the May 20th, looks like Harry, you, Christine, Jonathan, and I were all there. Same thing. Need a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of May 20th meeting.
Thank you, Harry. Second?
A second?
Is that Christine?
Yes.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Aye.
We got one abstention.
Right.
From Ms. McBride. Third item is case number 1-1988 Anderson, major modification to a final development plan filed by Mark Reinhardt on behalf of Reinhardt Real Estate Holdings, property at 1280 Nagel Road. This is zoned planned office in Anderson Township. Staff?
The request, as Mr. Chairman stated, is a major modification to the final development plan for an addition to the Goddard School, approximately 5,500 square foot addition, plus a parking lot modification, and also a variance for a new freestanding sign along the Nagel Road frontage. This is a location map from Cages. This is Nagel running north and south, and this is a shared private driveway that enters into the Comboni property. To the north of the slide is the post office. This is Cincinnati Federal Savings and Loan, and the Goddard School is currently here with the circular driveway and parking lot. The Goddard School has access via Nagel via the private drive, but it also has a private drive that exits out to Beachmont Avenue or through the office development to the south. The property itself is 2.27 acres total. The Goddard site is 1.04 acres, and again, 30 feet of frontage on Nagel with frontage on the two private drives. The topography is relatively flat, however, it does have a slight rise to the east. Surrounding zoning includes to the north, OO planned office, to the south, planned retail, and then to the east and the west is also planned office. The proposed development, again, is an addition, which is seen here in the slide. The addition would be to the east of the current school. A removal of the circular drive, which is currently used for student pickup and drop-off. The parking lot itself would be modified to add spaces and fill in the areas where the circular drive is. So there would be an addition of 6 new spaces. An outside play area, a new playground, an outside play court, a patio in the vicinity of the addition on the slide here, a new dumpster enclosure, which also has an outside storage area attached to the dumpster enclosure, and then finally a proposed freestanding sign on Nagel. This is a little fuzzy, but you can see the floor plan in your packet. There's also one thing I did forget to say is a small addition to the front entryway of the main entryway. There would be an addition to the front 2 offices and a small improvement to the entryway. This is the proposed landscaping plan. Additional landscaping would be added to the rear of the addition. Sorry, there's the mouse. To the rear of addition to the south of the addition. Most of this is existing landscaping, and this was to remain. There was a condition of the original rezoning that this area remained unchanged, and the applicant's not proposing to modify that area. This is the proposed lighting plan. There's only one light pole, one new light pole. The remaining lighting on the parking would remain the same. These are the elevation drawings of the proposed addition. Again, these are more clear in your packet, but the proposed construction materials would match the existing school, same style of brick. Also the addition of a stone along the border of the building, and approximately, generally the same height as the existing building. And then these are just architectural renderings of the addition. These are a few of the pictures on site. Again, looking at the main entrance to the school, the overhead or overhang would be extended slightly to allow for additional office space and additional entryway. This is looking generally south toward the front entrance of the building. This is looking at the area where the addition is proposed. Currently, it's used as a nature trail. This is looking to the east at the Comboni property and their office buildings. And then this is looking from the shopping center that faces Beachmont, looking at that shared private drive, looking back north. This is the cell tower enclosure that you could see on your site plan. As stated before, in addition to the request for the addition, the modification for the addition is a new freestanding sign. It would be located between the sidewalk and the existing Comboni sign. Ground monument style sign, approximately 7 feet 3 inches, and when you calculate the entire area, because it is over 6 feet tall, the square footage would be 60 square feet. And then these are pictures of looking at Nagel, or looking from Nagel, along Nagel. This is the existing Comboni sign. This is the private drive into the office development. This is looking south toward Beachmont. This is looking north. Again, this is the entrance to the post office. There is another sign in addition to the Comboni sign on the Nagel frontage, and this is the Cincinnati Federal Savings and Loan sign. So we'll go back to the site plan and just highlight a little bit of the history on this site, which is extensive. It was originally constructed in 1988, or I'm sorry, the property was originally rezoned in 1988. It was from C residence to planned office. There have been multiple modifications since that time, including a final development plan approval for the Cincinnati Federal Savings and Loan, which actually reduced the square footage that was originally proposed for this entire site. There have been proposed modifications to the Goddard School, some that have never been constructed, and most recently there was a modification that was approved for an addition as well that was never approved. And with this latest modification, it allowed for a 5,950 square foot office addition, which again was never constructed. There has been signage history on this property also. As you can see in the staff summary, starting in 1993, the Comboni sign was approved by the Zoning Commission. 1994, the Cincinnati Federal Savings and Loan installed their sign. 96, the Goddard sign was installed along the driveway. In 2001, the Cincinnati Federal Savings sign was relocated from the private drive to the Nagel frontage, and then in 2011, the Goddard School installed a sign as well. So again, as we stated before, there's currently 2 signs on the Nagel frontage. That's the Comboni sign, which is 40 square feet, and the Cincinnati Federal Savings, which is 24 square feet. As far as zoning compliance, there are several areas that the applicants are requesting a variance. The first is, because this sits on a private drive for zoning purposes, this was considered the front yard of the site. This was considered a side, a rear, and a side. With the addition, this is the cell tower, and it is a separate property. So with the addition, a proposed rear yard setback of 19.12 feet, where Section 136.3 requires a 40-foot setback. And the second variance is for the freestanding sign. One freestanding sign is permitted with the current OO zoning. As you can see from the history, the Zoning Commission has approved the Cincinnati Federal Savings sign and then the Comboni sign as well. It was existing. So there's been action by the Zoning Commission to allow for 2 freestanding signs on the Nagel frontage. So it's part of the modification request. If a third sign, it would be a variance by the Zoning Commission to allow. It would be part of the modification if the sign is approved by the Zoning Commission moving forward. As far as the approving resolution, again, we fell back to the one that was approved in 2000, allowed for approximately 58 square foot additional structure and an 1,800 square foot addition to the Goddard School building. This proposal is actually less total square footage than was approved in 2000. It was never built, but as far as comparing the resolutions, this is consistent with the resolution that was approved in 2000. The applicable plans for this area, the trails plan, there are existing sidewalks on Nagel Road, so the plan is consistent with the trails plan. As far as the Anderson Township Comprehensive Plan, staff felt that it was compliant or consistent with the following goals: economic development, housing and neighborhoods, and quality of life, and those are all stated in the staff report. So as far as staff's recommendation, recommends approval of the major modification based on the reasons in the staff report, with suggested conditions that the previous conditions from the resolutions be carried over. Again, there are two variances, and we separated them into variance A and variance B. Variance A is regard to the rear yard setback of 19.12 feet versus 40 feet. Staff was of the opinion that this variance should be granted for the reasons, again, identified in the staff report, and that is the area with the reduced setback it sets back to a cell phone tower and cell phone tower property. So if you take the cell phone tower out, they would meet the rear yard setback of 40 feet. The character of the neighborhood would not be altered, and variance would not adversely affect delivery of governmental services. The cell phones accessed from the other area from the south, and then the spirit and intent of the requirement would be met. As far as variance B, this is in regards to a third freestanding sign for the development, but a second freestanding sign for this parcel. It goes out on the panhandle, so it would be two freestanding signs for one parcel on Nagel frontage. Staff gave reasons for and against for approval of this variance. So we wanted to outline areas of concern, but also areas pro and con for granting the variance, and we've laid those out in the staff summary and felt that those items should be addressed with the applicant tonight and discussed by the zoning commission. So I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
First of all,
Thank you,
Chairman,
Paul.
I'd
Go ahead,
like to
Jonathan.
mention that I have professional dealings with the architect, Tony Rovignani, unrelated to this project. I do believe I can be unbiased in my opinion, but I wanted the board to make a decision whether I should continue hearing this case or not.
I don't have a problem with that.
We're agreeable.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that's fine.
Paul, could I?
Go ahead, questions, Ann?
Yeah, I am confused. Okay, so right now, there's the sign for the bank, and there's the sign for Combani, and then there's but Goddard already has a sign? Is that,
Goddard has a sign in front of their main entry on the private drive.
so it's just a small directional kind of sign, right?
I'm sorry, on Nagel, yes, they do have a directional sign. That's the sign right here. So, and that was permitted as a directional sign and not a freestanding sign.
Okay, and then in the signage history, the 2011 that installed the new sign along the driveway, and that's the 30.5.
At the main, off of the private drive, yes.
Okay. Okay, all right. Then one last question.
And that was a replacement of a sign that had already been there.
Okay. And then the lighting that they're proposing, does that fixture and pole, because I didn't necessarily, maybe I missed it, see a cut sheet, will that match the existing poles and fixtures that are out there?
There was a,
I mean, I would
there'd be
assume
a
it
question
wouldn't.
for the applicant, I
Okay.
believe so,
Okay.
but I'd want to default to the applicant on that one.
That's all that I had, thank you.
Okay.
Harry, questions? Jonathan?
Just, I guess, one question concerning the dumpster enclosure. And I see that its material is being consistent with the building, but the outdoor storage, there's really no indication I could see that that's being enclosed.
If you'll refer to There was a detail sheet in the packet. It's on
I think it's point 2, sheet 2.
sheet 2. So it is enclosed, it has a door.
I don't know if it has a...
Yes, I'm sorry, it's a sheet G point, 0.2. Second sheet from the front.
Noticed that before, but
Assuming since it shows a gutter on the south elevation and downspout that it is enclosed for security?
Yes, but we can clarify that with the applicant as well.
And then access to it, it looks like primary access is from the easement, and there's no issues concerning the access through the easement?
For the dumpster,
Yes. I'm assuming it's all ingress egress.
right, it's somewhat from the parking lot, but also it may carry over into the ingress egress easement.
That's really the only questions I had.
Christine? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Paul. This time, we'll go ahead and hear from the applicant, make some remarks, any additions. Come on up and just state your name.
Mark Reinhardt. Mark Reinhardt.
Thank you. Anything you'd like to add to the application, or?
The lighting will match. I want it to look nice on the property, so it'll match the existing lighting. I think the other concern was about the signage. So we do have a directional sign down there by Nagel. It's kind of an odd property where our school is. You cannot see it from Nagel as you drive by, so we tried the directional sign, and we still have a number of parents that will drive up and down Nagel looking for 1280 Nagel, and they just can't find it. The new sign is designed to match our existing one, so it looks familiar to parents. And I think what trips it up in terms of the square footage is the base that the sign's on. If you do not count the base, the sign square footage is 31.5 square feet, which would be within the allowable limit for the current statute. The base is there. As you can see, it's close to 24 inches, but there's a 24-inch berm, or roughly 18-inch berm, that the base would sit in. When you're heading, I guess it's north on Nagel, you can't see the ground there. And so the base elevates the sign to be above the stormwater detention berm. So it looks similar to what you see there on the screen now. You really would not see the base.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
Yeah,
Harry, go ahead.
you just had one mention of the 1280, that people drive up and down Nagel to see. Is there any way you're going to put the numbers 1280 on this sign?
Yeah, we would put the house numbers on the
Okay.
side.
I
the
see
brick.
that there, but, okay. I mean, that's just as small as the other one.
You mean the sign?
Well, I mean, the letters.
Well, I think the sign, the Goddard School sign, is going to be what I think catches the eye. We'll have 1280 Nagel, the house number, on the brick
You
brick
keep
sign.
the other sign there also?
No, that sign would come down.
Okay.
That sign would come down. This would be in place in lieu of it.
Okay. Thank you.
Jonathan?
For electronic message center,
Yeah.
does it have an automatic dimming feature? Because usually during the day, it's brighter than during the evening and night. And does it have certain hours of operation, or is it 24 hours a day operation?
You know, all that's definable. It would have a dimming facility on it. I know there has been, or there still is rules about how often the message could change. Obviously, we can follow all of that. Most of my clientele is, early to rise, driving down the street. They get off work, they're shopping. We really don't need to leave it on all night if that becomes an issue. It's far enough away from our school, and we do a lot of events with the parents and the children, to just walk down there and change it every week it's just a pain, yeah.
Christine? Ann, questions?
I guess I'm sympathetic to the fact that, if you've got the decorative brick base and the supports and so forth, and that gets calculated in. But I guess I'm curious, do you really think that you still need the 30-square-foot sign in front of the facility? I understand why you need a sign out on Nagel to get folks in. I totally understand that. But I guess once you're on that private drive, Goddard School is pretty obvious. Would there be any possibility of maybe removing that sign and putting in directional signage so you could say, Goddard School, enter and exit on your circular drive, as opposed to having the two 30-square-foot signs?
That sign that we currently have now, I forget what it was approved for, but we never put it up as it was approved for. It was approved for a sign, the Goddard School sign, and underneath it, it was approved for a message board. And obviously, we're not going to put a message board up there if it's down here. So that sign would become smaller. It's even going to get smaller than what it is now, because Goddard's requiring us to go over to their new branding logo, which is a different size sign than what we have now. So yes, it will be changed and be smaller. This is not a picture of it. I don't know that we have a picture of our current sign. That's right outside the parking lot.
I think I missed it.
But yeah, that wasn't mentioned because it's already been approved, but yes, that would get smaller.
But I guess what I was asking is there a possibility that goes away and we just go to directional signage in? Because, again, when you're on that private drive, the school is pretty obvious. Again, I'm very sympathetic to the need to get folks off of Nagel and in, but once they're on that drive, you're pretty obvious as to where you are and what you are.
From a cost perspective, we really hadn't thought about taking it down if it's already there, other than changing out the board that's on it, and we're not going to be putting up the message board. But in terms of taking down the columns that were there, we hadn't really given that a lot of thought. There'd be an expense that we'd have to incur to pull it down. I don't think that's in the easement at all. I think it's on the property. It's not on the Commonway property.
And Paul, how big is that sign? Is that 30 square feet, and that's...
That was 30.5 square feet.
So it was approved for 30.5 square feet, but it's not 30. We never put up the second sign. There was two components to that 30.5 square feet. The top board sign, it just says the Goddard School, and then a variable message reader board underneath that we never put in.
So you're going to be putting a new sign up there, right?
To replace the current board, but it's smaller.
So if we were to limit, say, the size of that sign, that second, what I would consider a second sign, to say, 15 square feet or something, then that would allow you to still identify and get folks in.
I think so.
Okay. And then, what are your hours? How late are you open in the evening, I guess?
Until 6 o'clock.
Okay.
And then occasionally we'll do parent trainings throughout the month, really, for teachers to come back, parents to come back and learn about early childhood education.
And you open pretty early, I'm willing to bet.
Well, the staff usually gets there around 6:30, and then our doors are open at 7.
Okay.
This is a great school. If you ever get a chance to come over, you're welcome to. I'll take you around. We love it there.
And then, I guess the other question I had, if you were to receive approval for the additional signage out on Nagel, would you be willing to put some landscaping around that?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Because that's not indicated on the landscape plan, so
Okay, sure.
I think that's all I had.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
This time we go ahead and open up the meeting for comments from anybody in the audience. If you'd like to come forward and comment on the case, please give us your name and address. Going once, twice.
You're not selling something.
All right. Thank you. With that, I'll go ahead and just open the floor to the zoning commission members for any comments or a motion on this case.
I guess, as I said to the applicant, I'm sympathetic to the fact that the school is back on a private drive, and it's not very visible, and you've got parents that have got a screaming kid in the back seat that they want to leave at a facility, and particularly if it's somebody not the regular drop her off or pick her up, or that it could be difficult to find the school. But I guess I would want to see a limitation put on the sign that is in front of the building to say 15 square feet if they're going to be redoing that sign anyway.
Well, I want it to be readable. I don't know if 15 square feet, is that readable?
You're only going 10 miles an hour on that private
Okay.
drive. I mean, and
That's
you're
fine.
literally, so, I mean, the main sign is going to be the one that they're proposing, so.
The comments, questions? Okay. With that, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion. Case number 1988 Anderson.
I would make a motion for Case Anderson 1-1988, major modification to the Goddard School at 1280 Nagel Road, that we approve the major modification to the site, and that would include approving the variance to reduce the rear yard from 40 feet to 19 feet, 19.12 feet, and also approving the variance to allow for additional signage on Nagel Road as proposed by the applicant, with the following additional conditions: that the LED message board be turned off from 6 p.m. to 7 a.m. every day, that the base of the sign be landscaped, that the sign that is currently in front of the building be reduced and be no more than 15 square feet, and that the existing directional sign that's on Nagel Road right now for Goddard be removed.
Yeah. I was going to say something. Can I say something before you do it? Can you modify that to say that if there's going to be some kind of activity there for that evening?
I'd
They have
like to comment
training.
also.
Or an open house or
Yeah, an
something,
open
yeah,
house.
that's a good
I
point.
like to comment first, just so the board is aware. As far as illumination of signs, they're only restricted in residential districts, and in residential districts, they're required to be turned off at 11 p.m. and they can, until 6 a.m. So in any residential district, if you have a sign, it must be turned off, and this is also the same for variable message centers. In office and retail areas, there is no limitation. However, with the variable message, there are restrictions on brightness. It must have a dimmer switch, and there are restrictions as far as to the timing of the message and scrolling, flashing, and that sort of thing. So just for your information.
With that, then, I would like to amend my motion, if I might, or revise it, since it hasn't had a second. I think we could do that. And that would be to request that the LED message center be turned off from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m.
Okay.
Clear? The second on the motion?
I'll second.
Second by Harry. Roll call?
Ms. Cook? Yes. Mr. Goffman?
Yes.
Mr. Heskamp?
Yes.
Ms. McBride?
Yes.
Mr. Van Zandt?
Yes. Next item on the agenda is item number 4, case 1-1993 Anderson, a major modification to the final development plan filed by Jason and Allison Miller. They are the property owners, 3196 Killington Lane. This is Zone A, Community Unit Plan, ACUP, Anderson Township. Staff report?
Sorry. Yes. rearranging. This is the property in question. It's approximately 1.3 acres. There's 90 feet of frontage on Killington Lane, and there is a gradual decrease from the house to the rear of the property, and then a steep decrease from that point forward. All of the surrounding uses are single-family, and they're all zoned A-A CUP, which is a community unit plan residence. Actually, let's go back here. The proposed development, the applicant would like to construct an outdoor covered living area that would encroach into the no build limits that was established with this subdivision during the zone change process. There were actually two limits established. One was a building line or building construction line, and which is identified in the pinkish or purple. And then the second line that was identified was a greenbelt area, which stipulated that this area was to remain in its natural state, or if it was cleared or if things died over time, that it be allowed to regenerate itself as a natural area. This was a condition that was placed on the zone change and was part of the community unit plan. This was established in 1993 when the property was rezoned for the sanctuary of Ivy Hills. This particular home was built in 1996. That's just another depiction of the no-build line and the greenbelt area. And as far as consistency on the lots, it somewhat followed the vegetation at the time. However, there's not a certain dimension, if you will, from the right-of-way to that line. If you can see, there is a variable in there. There's no, exact dimension as where that line is on each of the lots. It was just identified on the record plat and recorded with the subdivision. So this is the proposed development from the applicant. As you can see, it encroaches into the no-build area. However, it does not infringe upon the greenbelt area. And again, as I stated earlier, this particular home was built in 1996. As far as the history for this subdivision, there have been multiple requests for structures such as this that either encroached into the no-build area or the greenbelt area. The most recent was a deck and terrace that was proposed at 8220 Wycliffe Drive, and this was approved in September 2012. And then the other history of the other properties, 7 total, are shown in the staff summary. And then just looking at the elevation drawing of the proposed addition, again, an outdoor living area, but it is covered and is attached to the home, so we do consider this an addition to the home. These are proper pictures of the property, just looking at the property from the street, looking south, and then the remaining pictures are from the rear yard. This is an existing patio, and this is the same area where the outdoor living area would be. As you can tell from their backyard, somewhat from pictures, it's a little deceiving from the pictures, but there's an extreme drop-off. There's a gradual decrease, but then there's what I would consider very steep from that point forward. All of this is currently mowed, and it's not natural, or, it's not as a green belt. So the actual addition would not encroach into the area that's already vegetated. So as far as the findings, staff was recommending approval of the modification based on past reviews or modifications to the development plan for this subdivision. And then again, in this particular area, particular property, they are not encroaching into the greenbelt area, even though they are extending into the no-build line. So be happy to answer any questions.
Questions from the zoning commission for staff?
I just had one quick one. So Paul, based on the pictures and so forth, so then the only tree, mature tree that's going to be coming down would be the one that is on the patio there?
Well, and that's questionable too. I think the applicant can speak to that. Because on their site plan, it didn't identify where this tree is. Most likely, it would be damaged during construction if it weren't slated to be removed. So that would be the only tree impacted.
But it's not going to, they're not going into the existing tree line.
They're not going into this is their area, their rear yard, which is mowed, and the vegetation follows the base of that, or the toe of that.
Okay.
Well, along the hillside, I guess. This is the edge of their existing patio. And as you can see, it would not encroach into, well, this is better. It would not go beyond that wall.
Other questions? Harry? Jonathan? Christine?
No.
At this time, we'll hear from the property owners or their representative. Come on up. Identify yourself, please.
Hi, Jason Miller. As you can see, the existing zone, we're not really going to do anything else besides, it's not going to go further past the existing patio, and you're right, the only tree that will be affected is that corner one. We do have a tree on the corner of our house, on the bottom right-hand corner, the tree on the very left, that will actually remain there and not be damaged at all.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Miller?
Are you gonna lose any trees at all?
Just the one in the upper right-hand corner, that large tree right there, that will actually have to come out, because that's going to be, our structure's actually going to go probably to the end of the wall where the existing patio wall contains, so.
Do you plan to replace that?
With the existing landscape, I'm not quite sure, to be honest with you. We definitely don't want to lose our view, because we have a view that goes out over the woods there. So that's something that we're still kind of in the plans of, that we really haven't really got too much into the details to make sure until we figure out if we can do it or not.
Okay. You had to ask.
Absolutely.
Other questions? No. Thank you, Mr. Miller. Anybody in the audience that would like to make comments or anything regarding the case, just please give us your name and your address.
So my name's Hans Schwartz, reside at 3192 Killington Lane, so next door to. So this is the first we've seen of the actual drawings of this. I guess concern from our side on two fronts. One is based on the current patio today, believe they have privacy on their patio, and we have a patio as well where we have privacy there. With the extension into the no-build zone, concern around losing that privacy. Secondarily, the view that we have today, unobstructed from our patio, believe that that would be compromised then. Those would be the two concerns that we'd have. Obviously, those would affect the property value. Thanks.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
No, I'm just,
Oh, I thought you were,
apologize for Hans, no, it's just, the existing tree on the very bottom right in the corner blocks kind of like our patio from them, we're not gonna.
We're actually not going to extend past the current patio as it is today, so I don't think that you guys will actually see it, because it's not going to go any further than the existing patio today, and that tree is not going to be coming out at all. So that was something that we were to make sure that we have that concern. I apologize for not coming over and talking to you before, but the existing patio, we're not going any further than where the wall is for our existing patio, out past the very right-hand corner, if that makes sense. That's all.
thank you. Okay, any other questions or comments, the zoning commission?
Yes.
Yes.
Is there anyone else? Anyone else?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. Anyone else in the audience want to make a comment or remark about the case? Nope. Okay, thank you. With that, I'll go ahead and either take additional comments from the zoning commission or a motion.
I think I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay, go ahead,
If
Ann.
the rest of the commission.
I don't have any.
Nope.
Nope.
I would make a motion that we approve the major modification to the final development plan for case 1-93 Anderson, 3196 Killington Lane, providing for the home extension as proposed.
Give a motion in a second.
A second.
Christine, roll call.
Ms. Cook? Yes. Mr. Goffey?
Yes.
Mr. Heskett?
Yes.
Ms. McBride?
Yes.
Mr. Ruffett?
Yes. Thank you. The final item on the agenda tonight is item number 5, which is case 3-2013, LUP, the adoption of the Angkor Land Use Plan update. The plan focuses on the northern section of the township known for its industrial areas. Staff?
With this land use update, the township contracted with Gary Meisner and Associates, and he is here to make the presentation tonight.
Mr. Meisner, you're up. Thank you.
Thanks. We had a number of engaging public meetings with the steering committee, and I'm sure you understand that the context of the study was to update the comprehensive plan, fly a little lower, talk more, look at the details. Do you have some? So the planning process involved quite a few, 9 steering committee meetings. We met with the adjacent jurisdictions, all but one, although we invited all to attend individual meetings. We met with a number of other special interest groups related to the river, the hillsides, environmental groups, and out of that process, went through a working session where we talked about how the comprehensive plan might change, identified zones of potential change within the comprehensive plan, had a lot of spirited discussion on what sort of land uses and/or activities might happen in each of those areas. So we kind of went from general information to specifically looking at all sections of the Angkor area. And that resulted in a land use plan that maybe we'll flip up on the screen. That's actually there we go. That looks similar to the comprehensive plan, but proposes a series of transitional areas. And those transitional areas, if you're looking at the plan, have cross-hatching on them and relate to the legend on the left, take into account some changes, but also allowing for some flexibility with individual property owners to make decisions later. Some of those decisions may be influenced by, the final outcome of the Martin Marietta mine, and so that was sort of one of the considerations for that, and related to that, the marketability of certain land. So, in just kind of a brief way, the northeasternmost section of the property, which is a hillside that goes up into Union Township, went to a transitional residential use up on the upper part of the township property, and the lower part is a transitional industrial residential use. So you can see that that was kind of a sensitive area of discussion with those property owners there. There was equal discussion about hillside conservation throughout the Angkor area, and so those vertical lines, which are difficult to see on the screen, but on the plan, demarc areas where hillside conservation should be emphasized, and that's basically viewed as a future overlay to the land uses. So the underlying land uses would be the same, but there would be perhaps a set of guidelines that says, how much or what percentage of that might be conserved should it be developed. So those apply to both the single-family residential, the cluster single-family, and the transitional single-family. There's also a special land use along Round Bottom Road that is mostly a lake, just kind of across from the Evans property, just to the east. And that is a transitional industry park recreational designation. There is the potential that that might be donated as parkland, so that's how that grew in terms of a concept. The retail along Round Bottom Road and just to the south of Broadwell and west of Broadwell was changed to a mixed use, and it's a little larger than the original comprehensive plan, and that was to accommodate some potential for more of a neighborhood center to happen in that zone. There's a vertical cross-hatching over light industry through the middle section of the map, and that is the core industrial area of Angkor that has heavier manufacturing with Cinco, with Pavestone, with some of the properties owned by Evans, And even though the buildings enclose the manufacturing, it's a more intensive use, and those property owners were sensitive to shifting the emphasis away from the heavier use to light industry. So we've designated that to earmark that this is traditionally, historically, a more heavy industrial use, and it's identified as the core area of industry. Beyond that, we've, of course, looked at it again and again, and there's a couple little nuances at the top of the hill of 32 and the commercial area that we might, with a next step in discussions with staff, refine a little bit to either cluster or transitional housing, depending on the comments from the commission and other comments. So it's a little bit more complex than a traditional land use plan, but I think what that does is it does allow for some flexibility. One of the key recommendations of the plan was to, once the Martin Marietta resolution runs its course, to do an update of this land use plan and perhaps refine a little bit at that point in time.
Questions, Harry?
Yeah, this is just preliminary again until this is solved? Until that,
Well, it's final as of now. But the recommendation is that it be updated once, in the future, once the Martin Marietta issue is resolved.
thank you.
Other questions? Christine?
Not yet.
No? Jonathan? Ann?
I guess the only question, Gary, that I had was, when we're talking about some of the land use categories, in particular like the transitional residence, I guess in that description maybe was looking for some kind of references to maybe a higher density type, to serve as that transition from single family to, some of the much more intensive uses that we have down there.
Good question. So the comp plan does define transitional and cluster, and so the thought is that still would be the definition.
I see.
However, where it's paired, with a industrial use, which was in the comp plan, it's basically allowing for flexibility to go either direction at this point with those same definitions. So it's sort of saying still being identified by the property owner as to whether or not they want to emphasize one or the other. It's leaving open that question, which we think is gives a little more flexibility to decision-making, both from the township standpoint and the property owner standpoint.
Yep, that was the only question that I had.
So, Gary, with all these transitional districts, it seems like we're trying to soften some hard lines between uses.
It is, and I think it's trying to make it more public sensitive, and saying, okay, and property owner sensitive, if there's probably going to be more dialogue when those issues come up and there's a more specific plan. And I think one of the other things that was talked about too is that, there is the proposal for a passenger rail line going through this area on the existing rail line, and that triggered a lot of discussion about, well, if it actually happened, then a transit-oriented development district would be more appropriate than, straight industry or the core area industry. So there were several factors to saying, okay, we should really build a little flexibility into this, and then, see what the future holds.
Manage it as we go.
Well, you do that anyway, but I think, sort of when you hardline things sometimes, you maybe stifle a little creativity on both ends, and I think with staff and commission input, those future decisions will be even better.
Well, you're giving the landowner a better deal. I mean, you know, it's something to talk about when things happen.
Well, and I think when you compare this, and we've got one sheet there that perhaps you have a copy of, there's a sort of area-by-area comparison. When you look at that, it's also respecting the fact that we, you know, have zoning in place, and there's a comp plan in place already, and so we're refining and finessing as opposed to, you know, just saying, here's the line.
Well, and it was a hard area to look at in terms of the unknown of the whole eastern quarter. I mean, you know, usually when a plan is done, you know that you're going to have light rail or whatever, and then you're able to come in and say, right, the TOD is, you know. So, I mean, I think that the fact that you didn't have a hard series of expectations as to what exactly was going to occur, I think this provides a lot of flexibility for more input, more discussion, and you know, in reaction to what's going to happen there.
Yeah, and I think the residents and the large property owners alike would like that, you know, opportunity for more discussion as things proceed. And
Thank you. It looks neat too.
Thank you. At this time, we'll go ahead and open it up to the audience. If anybody'd like to make some remarks, we're welcome to come on up to the podium and just tell us your name, your address, and let's get your remarks into the record.
Hi, I'm Kathy Berger. I live at 7850 Bilby Lane. I'm a 29-year resident in the Angkor area and attended several committees. I don't think I missed a meeting one. And I have a few, I guess, issues I'd like to address. I never heard of or seen that there was a second public hearing or open discussion forum. We were promised one on June 5th at our last meeting, at the steering committee meeting, that there would be a public overview, a second one. And on the papers that I looked at today, it says that there was a second one. There was not a second meeting to the public to go over what the findings were, make suggestions. So that's one thing that's bothersome. The other thing that's bothersome is I was at the Eastern Corridor meeting over in Madisonville on October 1st. And while I'm sitting there, I'm looking through the website. There's nothing at all about Angkor plan. The plan wasn't on there. If you go into committees, no Angkor committee. I kind of feel like the area. And then on October 1st, you can look at the website now, and on October 1st at 8 p.m., after I addressed this issue with Tom Caruso, it popped up directly after that meeting. So I don't feel that everything was forthright as far as the residents are concerned. I feel that through the meetings and everything, it was geared more business-friendly. There was a lot of discussions that we had. Like one of the things that they have in here is about no new residential build in the area. And we spoke about the very farthest side of the northern plan of, and it's Evan's property. It's his property. Possibly having a residential homes built in that area. So saying no new residential, you know. And, you know, as a resident in that area for that long of a time, there's just been so many things that you see that's going more toward the business, you know, and by saying that the residents are not apt or open to change, we were there. We went to every meeting. We gave our position. We told what we would like to see happen. We want green jobs there. You know, we want a bike path along Round Bottom Road. It's a bike path. It's by state. It is a bike route going from Milford, you know. And so there was talk of improvements of widening the road. Well, when the road goes to be widened, because of the truck issues on the road. There's places on Round Bottom Road that it's just highly dangerous. The width of the road, it really doesn't withhold a lot of the truck traffic that goes there now. And I figured, well, the best time to do that would be when you do the road improvements, go ahead and put the bike route in. And we spoke of an industry area that consumed of campus style, like education or medical facilities. You know, we were not, you know, we were completely against heavy industry. In the red code book in section 112.2, sorry, I think I left that over there, it clearly states, you know, Anderson Township, what identifies heavy industry and light industry. And I'm sorry, my paper's over there. Can I get that, please? Thank you. Okay, that includes the heavy industry list examples as cement manufacturers or explosive manufacturers, dumps, incinerators, junkyards. Those are the kind of things that, you know, adequately described heavy industry. What we have down there is we do have manufacturing and warehousing. So there's only one spot in the Anchor area that is clearly defined heavy industrial. So we would like to keep it light industrial. And that's just a few of the things that we found when we were going through all this. I did meet with Paul and Allison and went over my concerns, as well as some other residents did. And then they also met with the large landowners, met with them privately too. So I think the green space, the filling in the lakes, the heavy industrial, I just think all of that's just not good for the area. That we just built a beautiful park down there. Oh my gosh, I don't know if you've been there, but Riverside Park is absolutely gorgeous. And to think of, you know, to change that area into something different than parks and green jobs and campus-style industries and things like that, I think would be a bad choice.
Is your name Mrs. Berger?
Yes, Kathy Berger.
Kathy, we're going to take all the remarks, and then we'll have staff just make some general replies.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else here tonight? Please come on up. Give us your name and address. Thank you.
My name is Dennis Douglas. I live on Mount Carmel Road, 3634. I bought that property a year and a half ago, and the thing that drove me to it was that it was low concentration, low density of residents in the area. That's what drew me to it in the first place, the beauty of the river at the bottom of the hill and all that kind of thing. So my question is it set in stone what is going to be developed down there? Do you know what people have interest in putting in down there? Do you know? But what I would like to not see would be 700 or so housing units go at the bottom of Mount Carmel Hill, and all of a sudden you've got the Little Miami River becomes a dump for beer bottles and all this other stuff that's going to be, the area will be ruined by housing developments, in my opinion. So I'd like to not see that happen. And as the time passed for residents to have any kind of impact or say into what actually goes in. Has that time passed?
Paul?
We're taking comments from everyone.
Okay.
We'll answer the questions.
And also, is there a place where I can get a map, that map or something like it, and maybe an overview of the plan?
All this is posted on our website.
It's on the website. Okay, great enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Douglas.
Hi, I'm Anna Carey. I live at 4150 Mount Carmel Road, and I have a better, more legible version of that map. I think one of my concerns is with the connector, which in the text says that it's going to go from 32 to Broadwell Road, but on the map, it shows it going all the way through to Mount Carmel and then down Mount Carmel to Round Bottom. Can you all see that on the maps that you have? And I don't like the discrepancy between what it says in the text and what's on the maps, because maps tend to take on a life of their own. So I think if it's to go to Broadwell, the map needs to better reflect that.
Thank you, Ms. Carey.
I'm Lynn Woodward. I live at 3763 Mount Carmel Road, and I am I'm here to talk about hillsides. Could you go back to that map that showed that we've been looking at all the time?
Or
Even the bigger one?
this one?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that'd be fine.
We have that one,
Yeah.
and that one.
Well, the one that has the hatch marks on it. We had some discussion, and there was some movement of the recognition that these are really delicate hillsides. And these are the steepest hills that the Cincinnati area has. And Hamilton County spends more money per capita on erosion than any other county in the country. So these are really, because of our clay and the composition of our ground and the steepness of these grades, these are really compromisable hills. The property lines, the demarcations of these areas kind of follow property lines. Kind of generally the geological, and what do you call it with all the lines for the steepness of the hills? I can't think what that's called.
Topography.
Contours?
Topography.
Topography. So my property, for instance, abuts the Hillside Trust. That was originally part of my family land. It doesn't show the steepness of the grade. It shows it all as being cluster housing. The hills are every bit as steep, not up right near the road, but every bit as steep as the Hillside Trust land. In fact, part of the Hillside Trust land gets a little flatter. I mean, it's very stupid to me to go by property line for what you consider appropriate for transitional and cluster housing. It does not accurately affect what would happen were there to be considerable building on that site. For those of us who have, I'm certainly not the largest property owner there by a long shot. For those of us in that area who do have a lot of property, I own 10 acres. But for those who own 20, 60, hundreds, this is a considerable hit. And for me, it's unsellable right now. And I think if it becomes transitional housing and 2 doors up the street is going to be apartment buildings, you've totally changed why I have my property and how I can dispose of it. I truly do not understand why the property across the street from me would remain single housing. If that's worthy of being single housing, my home is worthy of being single housing. I think all of it, the whole eastern side of Mount Carmel Road is left as single family. Yeah, most of them have smaller lots. I am very much in resistance to this. I think it's taking advantage of one of the beautiful spots, the beautiful hillsides that are left in this township, which we call green, and severely changing most of it. I find it unsettling.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name is Jack Gordon, and I own property on Mount Carmel Road. Address is 4302 Mount Carmel Road. We have about 20 acres and a house there. but I'm a little bit of an anomaly in that I also own a business on Broadwell Road. So I'm very impacted by, both professionally and personally, by what's going to happen out there. I think Gary did a pretty good job of trying to please everybody when he drew these plans up, because you got a lot of big landowners who didn't want to be hemmed in. But the basic reason that this is all taking place, I believe, is because the township wants to increase the tax base. We've got a bunch of undeveloped land down there, and in 1994, I think, was the last plan, and the purpose of that plan was, let's get some things going so we can increase the tax base in this area that is the second, one of only two very large undeveloped areas in Hamilton County, I believe, that's zoned industry. I put my office down there thinking that it would be developed. I put my office down there believing in 2002, believing that we were going to get the Anchor connector from 32 to Broadwell Road. 2002, it's now 2013. Been there 11 years, nothing. Martin Marietta's made a bunch of promises to the board and to lots of other people about what they're going to allow happen above ground as long as we can allow them to blast underground. What I'd like to tell you is that there's three problems with developing this area, and then unless you solve those three problems, you're not going to develop it. You're not going to increase the tax base. It's going to remain a wilderness, which is kind of okay with me as a homeowner. I'm not looking forward to Mr. Evans developing a lot of his property. But we don't have sewer, we don't have gas to that whole area. Until we have utilities that go throughout that area, nobody's going to build. I was the exception. I was willing to put in a septic system. I was on Broadwell Road, so I was able to get gas. Anybody that's not on Broadwell Road is not going to be able to get gas. Two, getting in and out of that area already is a nightmare. In the wintertime, people try to come down Mount Carmel Road, down that hill. And as soon as you start getting ice on that hill, you start having accidents. I have personally been hit by a semi coming down that hill when I was in my car trying to go up it one day. Till we get a decent road into that area that doesn't mean using Round Bottom Road, you're not going to develop that area. Okay, the Anchor connector is an important project, as important as the Eastern Corridor, and needs to get some attention. It's been funded, it's been defunded, it's been, 90% of the property owners said that it was going to impact coming through to the place, agreed to it. One didn't, it got killed. The current plan, according to Martin Marietta, is they'll let you run an Anchor connector through their property, through the lakes, and connect to the western side of Broadwell Road. It's the wrong place for it. It needs to be to the east of all of that. It needs to be the most direct route, and it needs to be straight across. If you ever develop that lake area, you don't want millions of trucks driving on that road through that lake area. It's a beautiful area. It can be developed with offices, a lot of mixed-use things, but it's not going to happen if you've got 10,000 trucks a day driving down that road. And you're going to have a lot of trucks. And if Martin Marietta gets their way and starts blasting, you're going to have more trucks. And there's no way in and out of that area right now except through Newtown, which is a bottleneck. It's a bottleneck that's very, very bad most of the day now, not just during the drive times. The third problem you got in that area to develop it is blasting. You've approved the blasting twice, okay? Every resident and almost every business owner in that valley has told you they didn't want the blasting, okay? And yet you've approved it. So you've decided not to pay any attention to the people who live in the area and the people that operate in the area. If I tried to sell my business right now, I couldn't sell that property. Okay, I sold the business that's in the property last year, 12 months ago. I own the building, and there's somebody else that's operating the business now. I asked him if he wanted to buy the property as part of the deal, and he said absolutely not. Not with this blasting thing coming. Okay? I know Martin Marietta has made lots of promises about how blasting isn't going to affect anybody outside their property. But you don't know what way those waves are going to go when they start blasting. That building that I built down there has huge windows in it. It costs me something like $600 each when I replace them. And I have to replace them every now and then just because of birds. So tell me blasting isn't going to cause problems. So that's about all I got to say. You've got three problems and you have to solve them. And that road coming in has absolutely got to get done. And as of right now, the Anchor area is not on the 7-year plan for sewers. Okay, so 7 years, that's 2020, there's not going to be any sewers down there. If there's no gas and sewers put through that area, you're not going to develop it, and you're not going to increase your tax base. And I'm not going to be able to sell my property. So I would appreciate doing something other than say yes to Martin Marietta.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Yes, ma'am?
I'm Beth Douglas, 3634 Mount Carmel Road, and I can echo a lot of the concerns of the gentleman that was just speaking of the roads, Round Bottom Road, Mount Carmel Road, the trucks that go up and down there. I should say, I have lived in this area 45 years. I grew up right outside of Batavia, and I've been going around that area all my life for 45 years. We all know what a disaster Eastgate has become up through Union Township. There was no planning. I've been with my parents to planning meetings over the years growing up, and the township residents were always belittled, made fun of by developers. The zoning commission just said, okay, sure, whatever you want to do, go ahead. Money, 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 tax base, with no concern to the residents. And now that's a disaster. People can't wait to get out of there. Round Bottom's a joke. The traffic on that road, or not Round Bottom, Beechwood. We don't have adequate roads for the kind of traffic that I'm hearing. Also, my husband and I bought there for the quality of life, though. We knew what we were getting into. The no sewers, the lack of gas lines, can't even get internet down that road. We were fully aware of it. That was okay. We chose it for the quality of life. For the acreage that we have, for some of the privacy, for the lack of, if I wanted to live in a huge development, there are more than my choice in Anderson Township, and of unsold homes sitting in them. So there are several concerns that I share with the residents. I think a park would be great down there, light industrial, things like that are completely doable. Growing up in Batavia, Buxton was supposed to be light industrial. Now every time you turn around, there's a new subdivision with 500 homes going in here, 500 homes there. It's becoming another disaster. So I just would hope you keep these concerns in mind. Obviously, this gentleman and his firm has done a lot of work, and they have some great suggestions. But please be aware of the road there. I've called the cops twice. The Hamilton County Sheriff said, you need money? You could write tickets on this road. The trucks that go down there that are not supposed to be on that road. There's bikers up and down that road, which is fine, but someone's going to get hit, and who knows what happened. So it's pretty much a mess. And said I've seen it for 45 years, and I would be very careful before you hand out a building permit. You don't end up like your neighbors next door. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Douglas. Anyone else with something that's maybe new to the record? Be happy to hear from you, sir.
Yes, thank you. My name is Bob Schmidt. I'm a resident of this community. I also work at Senco Products. I've been there for 28 years. Senco's been there for since 1964. I think the critical issue that doesn't seem to rise to the surface is that there are actually two areas here. We're talking the flatland versus the hillside. And I think that if an adequate traffic program was installed in terms of the connector, both those issues could be separated and the concerns could be dealt with. I think the current plan is probably the best compromise that's achievable at this time. But I also think that we have to keep a recognition of the fact that the flatland has a historical industrial history. There's no way to get around it. If you really are concerned about history, then you should go back to the fact that one of the best Indian mound areas in this part of the United States was destroyed in the 1900s. Harvard University did an extensive study down there. Nothing is remaining of that. And who destroyed it? The farmers. It was gone. So I think we have to sit there and say, what are we really talking here? And I think we have to say, well, looking at two areas that have conflicting uses, but they're not going to build factories on the hillside. As far as building multifamily residences, I lived on the west side when I was a kid. Those all fall down the hill. That's what Hillside Avenue is all about. I think you have to recognize there's a difference, but I think it can be achievable if the connector is handled properly and proper traffic controls are put in place. As far as the blasting, Senco's neutral on that. We were down there for years. We tried to build an industrial complex. The economy changed. We're about 25% of what our sales were. We plan a 10% increase for the next 10 years. We hope to get back to where we were years ago. But housing in 2005 was 2 million new units. This year it'll be 400,000. We'll tie into that. We want to be able to go back to where we were down there in the valley. We think it's a prime spot for industrial development, but we also feel that the hillsides can be used appropriately to meet the concerns of these residents. I think it offers two options for the township. I think you need an industrial base. You also need some residential. But realistically speaking, a lot of those areas, if you really were going to build a house there, you would spend a small fortune, and you'd probably have something that would fall down over a period of time. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Well, is this new information, ma'am, or is it a, okay? Because we've had this for quite a bit of time.
The trucks. What never gets mentioned is that the Angkor Valley is not even a horseshoe. It's a circle enclosed by hills. So when you add trucks, more semis burning diesel with a lot more diesel fume, which is horrible for asthma, horrible for all of the respiratory problems that are so rampant in this area. You put those trucks through that smoke, the dust from Bob Evans, all of that, or Bob Evans, Doug Evans, it hangs in that whole valley. So whatever you do, if you bring in the supposed eastern corridor and you put it in there, what are we breathing? We're breathing stagnant smog. Everybody in that whole neighborhood does.
Thank you, ma'am.
And as for the...
Okay.
Thank
you. Ma'am, this...
It's just a statement.
Well,
I just wanted to let you
We're
know.
going to go ahead and then, is there anybody else that's going to ask to be a speaker that's in the audience? Please raise your hand. Okay, this will be the last speaker. Go ahead, miss.
I just wanted to let you know that Doug Evans is one of the major property owners down there. He owns 500-plus acres, I believe it is. And 5 of his properties that he has in the Angkor area are now up for sale. So I just wanted to make mention so
All right,
that
thank you.
take that in consideration.
Okay. With that, Paul, just some general remarks about the comments from the public, and then we'll have a conversation with the zoning commission. Go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify the public engagement and the public meetings for the plan. We did have 2 public open houses. One was on September the 25th, 2012, and the other was on January the 2nd, 2013. So to clarify in the plan where it said there were 2 public, those are the 2 meetings we were referring to. Outside of that, we had multiple steering team meetings, and our very last meeting over the summer with the steering team, it was discussed that the changes from that meeting would be incorporated into the plan. It would be posted online. If we got the feedback from the steering team that they felt we needed to meet again, then we were going to meet again. We didn't get that feedback from after it being posted online. There was a link that did expire after 30 days. We were notified on the 31st day, and it was placed right back on. So it has been available for public comment on our township's website since the summer, available for public viewing. And a little bit of the history, because it was asked about history and public input. The 2011 comprehensive plan recommended a smaller, more detailed plan be conducted in this area. So that was the purpose of the update of the Angkor plan. As was stated, there are many, it was challenging to have these steering team meetings because there are so many different viewpoints from being a resident to being a business owner in that area. So the attempt was to compromise and come up with a plan that we felt, not everyone was going to be 100% happy with, but at least could compromise and feel comfortable moving forward. There are still so many variables with that area, but we didn't want to sit on the plan until those variables were resolved because that may or may never happen. We felt like we needed to update the plan from 1994. If one of those major variables, whether that's the eastern corridor, whether it's the installation of sewers, whether it's the Angkor connector road, whether it's the mine, any of those were major players in moving forward. This is a guide, and I did want to touch on this as well because there were subtle changes from the comprehensive plan to the this update. And those were to, again, compromise. It was mentioned before about showing land use via parcel, and that's what the 2011 comprehensive plan did. And that was township-wide. That was the most efficient way to to demonstrate a comprehensive plan, township-wide, was to show it parcel-based versus based on the topography. With this plan, it was an attempt to further define those areas and clarify not only in the text, but also in the map, even though the text supersedes maps and planning documents. That is not the intent to develop the entire parcel for this type of use. Any development on parcels that are crosshatched deserve special attention to, you know, the environmentally sensitive hillsides, also to surrounding properties. If a surrounding use is not consistent with the character of a transitional residence, you'll see in the text that it's recommended that this development have more than ample buffer and also, you know, protect the integrity of the surrounding development, whether that's industrial development adjacent to a residential use or whether that's a more intense residential development to a single family. The other major, you know, with Eastern Corridor was a transit-oriented development that could drastically change this area. So the definitions of land use, as was stated there, the definitions of the land use are identified in the 2011 comprehensive plan. Any new definitions are in the Anchor plan. They go hand in hand with each other. Just to clarify that. Again, the overall theme of this, it did prioritize actions, and I think Mr. Gordon hit the nail on the head. I think the number one priority, and it's also with, you know, with Senco, is to Anchor Connector Road regardless of the 32. I think that's, did you have anything else you wanted to add, Gary or Allison?
Can I pause you so I can switch discs?
Sure. Did you have anything you wanted to add?
Okay, there were a couple of good questions there, and I think maybe we could clarify them. There was a statement in the comp plan that sort of got at your comment about discouraging residential development, but that was just the starting point. I think the plan shows where light industry is now some version of residential, and instead of just the retail district, which your land is in, is that general mixed use designation, which allows residential too, that there's been some effort to bring more residential in different ways. And I think even the transit-oriented development, we've seen examples where that could be layers of, you know, retail, office, and residential, if that should ever become a reality. Historically, the district is industrial, you know, for 50 years plus, but in terms of residential, there were some inroads created to the plan to allow for creative infill. I was a little confused about the comment about the access road. The Anchor Road is described on page 24 as going to Broadwell, but there's also a paragraph or a couple sentences about its continuation to Mount Carmel that's in the text. It didn't call it the Anchor Connector Road in the text, and that maybe is what your comment. But the intent there was to divert traffic in this, you know, developing zone away from going up Mount Carmel to get out. It was really to say, you know, go to 32 or go to Round Bottom, don't go up through that residential land up the hill. So I'm not sure if that was totally clear, but the text does say that. You know, in terms of the hillside conservation, this plan really has gone at some length to identify areas that should be conserved, these 15-degree slopes and higher. How that is converted into a development review and the specifics of it aren't outlined, because that's not what this plan is to do. But I would guess that staff would work hard at that. There are other sections of the township that have some similar issues, and conserving hillsides and the river corridor are a big, big issue with this plan, and I just think that we tried to address that as much as we can. In terms of the utilities and access, I mean, clearly the committee felt that the Ancor Connector Road needs to happen for many different reasons, both from commercial and from residential perspectives, and that's key to the future. MSD is working away slowly, at extending the sewers, and by 2017, to Broadwell, and yes, it's slow, but they kind of move slowly. Unfortunately, both, the connector road and the sewer has been moving slowly, but I'm not sure we can do anything about that. They're on the books, and I think if the township says, put the resources to doing the connector road, that it should happen in a shorter period of time.
Thank you. Paul, on the agenda, this item is called the adoption of the Ancor Land Use Plan update. Is this simply an update, or is there action expected tonight?
It's up to the zoning commission, but the way the process would work, and someone had asked if more public input is permitted. These are all public hearings. We are requesting the zoning commission, if you feel you can, take action tonight and make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees. And that's what the motion should read, is recommending, approval or denial of the plan. If you feel that more information is needed for you to even make that decision, it can be continued at your discretion. The process for the adoption of a land use plan, the first step in the process is the zoning commission. All the comments taken tonight, can be incorporated into a motion by the zoning commission, or again, it's up to the zoning commission for their decision or recommendation. The next public meeting would be the Board of Township Trustees. In pending action at this meeting tonight, there's the potential that it would be heard in November, the third Thursday of November. The final meeting is at the Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission, and the Board of Trustees, if they do approve the plan, it is sent to the Regional Planning Commission for their acceptance, and then it is an adopted plan. What that means is that moving forward, the plan is looked at as a guide for zone change requests and policy-making decisions for this area.
Thank you. So let's just poll the zoning commission. Ann, you prepared to take action on this tonight?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Harry?
Yes.
Yes. Jonathan?
Yes.
Christine?
Yes.
Yeah, and I'll say, considering that this has been a 12-month process, 2 public open houses, a variety of stakeholder meetings, comments tonight, I'm also prepared. I'll take a motion to forward a recommendation of adoption to the Board of Trustees.
I would be happy to make that motion to recommend approval of Case 3-2013 Land Use Plan, the adoption of the Ancor Land Use Plan update, make the recommendation that the trustees adopt that document.
Okay, second?
I'll second.
Second by Harry, roll call?
Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Mr. Goffman?
Yes.
Mr. Heskamp?
Yes.
Ms. McBride?
Yes.
Yes.
Can I make one comment real quick before we go on about this? I mean, this is just a comment about something that I just, a lot of the roads down there are county roads. So, I mean, I just want to make sure that people knew that we Broadwell Road, we can't do much about that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, that takes care of the regular agenda. Paul, you had some other updates?
We had some housekeeping items, yes.
Harry, you got a couple housekeeping?
Couple of housekeeping items. On your chair was a draft set of the Anderson Township Design Guidelines. So, and again, a fairly thick document. We wanted to make sure you had plenty of time to review it. This will be placed on your agenda in November. There was an update to the EME appeal, so that was also in your chair. And then our December meeting is scheduled for December the 23rd. And I did check if we wanted to move that meeting to December the 16th, if the zoning commission would prefer that than to have it. Okay.
Can they step outside if we're still conducting our meeting?
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, if you'll step outside while we're conducting our business, thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So the meeting in December, the regularly scheduled meeting would be on December the 23rd. And we did check the schedule. The room is available on December the 16th, which is the Monday prior to that, if you would prefer that versus the 23rd.
Yes. Yes.
Hearing yes,
23rd.
yes, yes, okay.
Unless you're bringing eggnog and,
Some holiday cheer. So we will move that to December the 16th. I am anticipating we probably will have a meeting. So we know we will have a meeting in November.
is that the 20?
The next meeting is November 23rd.
November the 23rd.
November 23rd?
Is that right?
No, that's Saturday, isn't it?
Let me see.
November 23rd?
25th, isn't it?
25th.
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 And I will not be here.
You will not
Oh,
be here?
no.
Okay.
If that's the week of Thanksgiving, I won't.
It is the week of Thanksgiving.
And
Do
you
we-
won't be here either, Kristen?
I'll be out of town that week.
Okay.
Do we
Are
want
the
to
rest of
look at
you-
maybe, I mean,
I'm good in November, it's the December where I'm the problem.
Okay.
Moving it back a week, so, up a week.
I'm okay to 25th.
Okay. As long as we have a quorum, we might move forward then. I'll check with Jay and see if he can be here. So Ann and Christine will not be. Okay.
What else did you want us to keep? Just this?
yes, yeah.
We
So
don't have to worry
November
about-
25th,
we don't have to worry
December
about the lawsuit.
December the 16th.
16, the ME case, the design guidelines, anything else?
I think that's everything. I think you all, no, that was it. I was going to say we asked for interest in committees, but I think that was okay with you all. Everyone responded.
You know, when I got that notice, it was, I mean, if we had terms, I assume the terms.
Right, the terms,
Run out of
you run out your term.
What, I got one more year?
So, I don't know.
You don't get to leave.
You don't, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't have that in front of me.
No other business, motion to adjourn.
We'll do it.
Harry, thank you. Second.
I second.
Christine, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.
That's a good reason to adjourn.
Yeah, I got it.